This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with the finale of Agatha All Along. The final two episodes, episode 8, Follow Me, My Friend, to Glory at the End, and episode 9, Maiden Mother Crone.
You must know the way then.
How dare you? Who are you?
Forgive me. I heard your singing. I thought you may know the way.
The way to what?
The Witch's Road. I heard tell of it. The road offers a prize worth the peril to witches who are brave and true. You know the ballad, and I'm in great need. Might you show me the way?
You inquire in good faith, so I shall respond in kind. Of course, I will show you the way to the road. I know it by heart. First, we must gather a coven.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Agatha All Along, the last two episodes of the second season of WandaVision. We're talking about episode 8, Follow Me, My Friend, to Glory at the End, and episode 9, Maiden Mother Crone. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am your other host, John.
Yeah, no Chris again this week, unfortunately.
No. He's got the big move.
He does.
The big move.
Yeah, moving house at the moment. So we thought we'd be able to fit in a podcast with him. But we were going to do it on Halloween night. And then our neighbour decided to have an entire fireworks display outside our house last night. So we couldn't record, unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely.
The remnants this morning of all the fireworks was ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yes, and of course our cat wasn't particularly pleased with that. Neither were our neighbours' dogs. So, yes.
You think they would have got the message when the dogs were barking for 2 hours. But anyway, we're not here to complain about our neighbours. We're here to talk about the excellent last two episodes of Agatha All Along. But there has also been some Marvel news that came out this week that we want to talk about, because there's lots and lots of stuff coming up on Disney Plus next year, or over the next couple of weeks, actually, to begin with, because Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be coming out in November on Disney Plus. And then our next Marvel series is coming up in December. What If Season 3 is coming up on December 22nd, just before the holidays, John?
Yeah, I know. I, for some reason, completely forgot about it. Yeah. But I love the What If series. I've really, really enjoyed it. And actually, in the announcement, I'm kind of really pleased that there's a whole rake of Marvel animations coming, because they look really cool, like Marvel Zombies,
yes,
which is for Halloween 2025.
Yeah, and so spinning out of What If as well. That was,
exactly. Yeah. But also, I mean, The Eyes of Wakanda, which is slightly earlier in August 2025. It looks very pretty. Yeah, really like the look of that.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the Star Wars ones that they do. We covered one of the Star Wars short shows that they do in between. Big animated series. It looks similar to that kind of style. It's a 4-episode animated series as well. There's one more animated show that's going to be coming up early next year, which is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which we're not going to be covering on TV Podcast Industries, but I know Chris is a big fan and will definitely be showing it to his lovely son, who's becoming a Spider-Man fan even at 1 year old. So I know he'll be watching that along with him. But the big ones for next year as well are 3 live action TV shows coming next year. We knew about one, which was Daredevil Born Again, coming March 4th. 2025, but there's 2 more that are coming out next year, confirmed. Now, we knew they were filming, but the next one is Ironheart, which comes out of Wakanda Forever. We met the character of Riri Williams in that movie, so finally that's being released. I think that was been in production for about 3 years. I suppose you're doing Iron Man on TV, on a TV budget, so there's going to be a lot of CGI and the special effects work on that.
I guess so, but I mean, it depends how they want to treat it. If they're just flying around in an Iron Man suit every 5 seconds, well then, it's going to be costly.
It's going to take about 10
as long as they use it well, it
Exactly.
doesn't need to be overly expensive, given the amount of CGI that's happening, I think, in TV now anyway.
But given
there's some shows have got whole scenes CGI'd, and I'm not just talking about the Rings of Power, but the Wheel of Time, certainly the big fantasy stuff.
Absolutely.
Really does.
But I think given the little clip that we saw of Ironheart in the teaser trailer, it does look like they're going all out. So looking forward to that. And the next one, which will be very interesting, is Wonder Man coming in December 2025. This one kind of came out of nowhere for John, I think. Chris had actually mentioned on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I just didn't have any notion of this. I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah.
I just find it bizarre that I've missed this.
I don't know
but nonetheless, other than Daredevil Born Again, I don't know, Ironheart, I think I'm going to have to be won over by that. I've kind of got vibes of I'm not too sure how much I care about it.
Well, I really liked her in Wakanda Forever. So,
no, me too. And to be honest, the guy in the scene, sort of little short clip in that montage has been in the recent Twister 2 movie. Twisters, in fact, I just keep thinking of the ice cream Twister. So I'm like, yum. But also, I think he was in a Transformers, and I think he's quite good, and I liked her in Wakanda Forever because I loved that movie. But I just don't know. I'm just not necessarily kind of vibing it, for want of a better word, you know, and it was maybe just a bit like with Hawkeye, you know,
and you really enjoyed that when it came out, so
so I don't know, I've not closed my iron heart to it, but it's the one that is probably going to have to work the hardest for me to sort of get excited about, because weirdly, and this is why I'm saying this, is because with Wonder Man, I just kind of just didn't realize this was going to be a thing. I think actually from the clip, you've got Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who was in Watchmen, who I really liked. I really like this actor. So I was like, great. And then you got Ben Kingsley reprising Trevor Slattery. And I was just like, okay, I'm all in on this, even though for some reason it completely didn't appear on my radar. And I'm kind of really intrigued. Maybe it's also the intrigue of Wonder Man. You know, it's very peripheral character in the Marvel comics.
Yeah, he's basically a superhero who plays the role of a superhero on TV or in movies. That's basically it. So I don't know what tack they're taking here, but effectively Simon Williams is the character. He's going in for audition, and he looks like he's working with Trevor Slattery, who's trying to make his way back into the entertainment industry after being kidnapped by the Mandarin.
So I'm just kind of really intrigued by this, and I like certainly sort of the main cast here that I've seen so far. I mean, who doesn't like Trevor Slattery?
Absolutely. He's been great, and we haven't seen him since Shang-Chi.
Exactly.
So I'll be looking forward to seeing him. But you've got a whole year to get up to speed in that one. We'll get ourselves back up to speed on What If before it comes out in December as to where that's going. But we do know, mentioning Shang-Chi, we know that that there's going to be an episode at least that features Shang-Chi in there, which is great to see him, because I'm really looking forward to that second movie, and it's been such a long time since we've seen those characters.
Absolutely.
But I think that's it for the upcoming slate of Marvel on Disney+. There's lots of movies coming out next year as well, which will be really exciting, because this year's been quite light for Marvel. So
it has, and that's why I'm also surprised at this slate, to be honest, because I thought they were going to be pacing themselves, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, we need to pace faster.
I do think there's a point where you've already put down the money for the project, so you have to kind of release it, or else it's an accountancy thing where you've already spent it, so you might as well release it to the public, you know?
Agreed.
So there is going to come a point, and especially with everything being connected in the Marvel universe, you kind of have to put this stuff out, or else it starts to make less and less sense.
Well, for sure. But I think it looks really, really interesting for 2025.
It does.
So, fellow Defenders, there'll be plenty of Marvel goodies for you to pop on over to the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries to listen to our dulcet tones. And so, as always, if you want to listen to all of that, as well as the stuff we're doing at the moment, please head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe on any Wiccan or Android-loving podcast player of your choice. Yeah. There'll be tons and tons of opportunities as well for theories, observations, comments, you name it. And so we would love to get those from you by email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or through our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries.
Absolutely. And a huge thank you to everybody who's been sending in your feedback for Agatha all along. We'll be talking about your feedback later on in the podcast, but there will be one last opportunity. If there's anything you want to talk about from Agatha all along, we will be doing our wrap-up episode where we'll be wrapping up our pub quiz, our Agatha Cauldron quiz, later on. Once the making of episode comes out on Disney Plus, which is hopefully going to come out in the next couple of weeks, we will be back talking about Agatha all along. So if you want to get any final thoughts into us on the show or the podcast, email us to that email address.
Indeed. Let us get on with our spoiler-filled discussion of episode 8 and 9 of Agatha All Along. Follow me, my friend, to glory at the end. And, of course, Maiden Mother Crone. Derek, what are some of the episode details, please?
Well, the showrunner, of course, for the show is Jack Shaeffer, who is the showrunner for WandaVision. Both episodes here were directed by Gandja Monteiro. She directed episode 6 of Agatha All Along, and as we mentioned then, she directed 2 episodes of The Witcher season 3 and 2 episodes of the first season of Wednesday as well. So a really experienced director in this type of show as well, so which is really good.
For sure. Absolutely love the fact that she's done some Witcher episodes. We really, really like that, and Wednesday as well. So, I mean, this is spookily in her wheelhouse, I would say.
Yeah, very much so. Episode 8 was written by Peter Cameron. He wrote episode 5 and 6 of Moon Knight and episode 5 and 6 of WandaVision as well. He also wrote the teleplay for the excellent horror Halloween extravaganza that was Werewolf by Night. And he's a writer on the upcoming Fantastic Four movie as well.
That is so interesting. Peter, you have a lot to do. Because I love Moon Knight. I think that was the first Marvel property that I gave 5 out of 5, literally, I think, for every episode, or there or thereabouts. Maybe one I didn't do. WandaVision, again, equally solid. Werewolf by Night, really enjoyed that as a one-off.
It was great,
so good. And if that's the quality that Peter Cameron is involved in, then good, because for me, that will be required to dig Fantastic Four out of a Fantastic Four shtick, to be honest.
And hope, absolutely, and hopefully it'll get a Fantastic 5 from you out of 5 when we see that next year.
So, I mean, that's really good to see that someone like Peter Cameron is a supporting writer there in the movie, to be honest.
Yep. And the finale of the season was written by Jack Shaeffer, the showrunner, with Laura Donney. Laura Donney wrote episode 2 of this season and wrote the penultimate episode of WandaVision as well. So again, I love this about this show, and we will talk about it as we get into our spoiler-filled discussion, but this does feel now, especially at the end of the season, like WandaVision Season 2, and will be coming out in the future with a 3rd season, which is Vision Quest, based on the adventures of the Vision that we saw leaving WandaVision at the end of Season 1. It wouldn't have made sense to call this WandaVision Season 2, of course. It just wouldn't make logical sense. The story of Season 1 was about Wanda, this season's about Agatha, the next season's about Vision. So I guess that's the way they're going to work it.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, we heard that Terry Matalas is going to be the showrunner for Vision Quest, as it's currently being called. Terry Matalas, we talked about this year because he was the showrunner for Picard.
Yeah, absolutely.
The final season.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, and cool. I like the fact that it will have some linkages here to Agatha all along.
I think so. He's going to be on a quest, and so is his son.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense too, because equally, we just haven't seen Vision since WandaVision.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to have those eyes on Vision,
Yeah.
really.
We need to find out who he is, because by the end of that
true.
season, we didn't really know who that
Yes.
character was.
Yeah, that as well.
But with all of that said, and I'd have to give a bit of praise to Jack Shaeffer as well. Really interested to see what she does next. And she worked on WandaVision, worked on Agatha all along. I'm certain that she has big things in her Marvel future at the very least, but we'll be really interested to see what she's done, because she's done such a good job showrunning those two shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Agatha all along has been really standout for sure.
Yeah.
But look, we'll get into the episodes, because I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be full of praise for this final swan song with Agatha.
Interesting. Well, we'll definitely get into that.
But I enjoyed them.
Yeah. But John, do you want to give us your synopsis for the final 2 episodes of Agatha All Along?
Sure. Following Lilia's death, Agatha is confronted by Rio, the personification of death. She believes Billy is an abomination, as he gained a second life by entering the body of William Kaplan. Agatha agrees to deliver him willingly to death once they've completed the road, and is allowed to continue on the journey with Jen and Billy. But after a few steps, they find that the witch's road goes in a circle. Angered that the road is not what he thought, Billy puts his shoes back on, and the 3 are transported to body bags in a version of Agatha's basement, with grow lights that slowly go out. The final trial has begun. Each of the remaining members of the coven need to get their reward for reaching the end of the road. When Jen learns that Agatha was the witch who bound her, she performs the unbinding spell and regains her abilities. Jen disappears, having gotten what she needed from the road. Agatha helps Billy locate Tommy's soul, and Billy puts it in the body of a drowning boy. Billy disappears, and Agatha grows a flower through a crack in the floor using a seed from her locket, completing the trial in the nick of time. She leaves the room and finds herself in her garden, where death awaits her. While Billy returns to help Agatha, she attempts to complete her vow to Rio and give Billy up, but he convinces her it's her time. Agatha kisses her old lover and dies, returning to the earth. Death allows Billy to leave, and he returns home to his parents. Upon entering his bedroom, he realizes that many of the objects match aspects of the road, and hears Agatha laughing. Elsewhere in 1750, Agatha has difficulty in childbirth. As Death arrives to take her son, Agatha pleads with her not to take him. Death tells Agatha that she already has a better deal than anyone else alive, so all she can give her son is time. Agatha gives birth to Nicholas Scratch, knowing that one day Death will eventually return to take him. Agatha spends the next 6 years absorbing other witches' powers and leaving their bodies for Death while raising Nicholas. As they travel together, Nicholas and his mother concoct a familiar song of their journey. Over many iterations of their travelling tune, the ballad of the Witch's Road is formed. Nicholas performs the song in a small village, hoping to ensnare some witches for his mother, but he is too sick to complete the ruse. That night, Death finally comes to take the young boy. While Agatha mourns her son at his graveside, a witch from the village approaches her. She wants Agatha to help guide her down the famous Witch's Road. Agatha hatches a plan to continue her long life using the song she created with her son. She spends the next 3 centuries absorbing other witches' magic by tricking them into gathering covens to open the road, then aggravating them into attacking her. Back in Billy's room in present day, Agatha, now a ghost, tells Billy that he created the road. He despairs, blaming himself for the deaths of Lilia, Alice, and Sharon. Agatha tries to relieve some of his guilt by saying she killed Alice and Lilia gave herself up, but admits Sharon was killed by Billy's mind. As Agatha planned to kill the whole coven anyway, she believes he should consider himself a saviour, as Jen got out alive. Billy returns to Westview and tries to banish Agatha in her basement, but she reveals that she is afraid of dying because she cannot face Nicholas Scratch. After all, she's done. Billy allows Agatha to remain as a ghost and seals the door he created to the Witch's Road with the name of Sharon Davis, Alice Wu Gulliver, and Lilia Calderoo. Together, the new coven of two, Billy and Agatha, set out on a quest based on Billy's vision to find his brother Tommy.
And so their vision quest begins.
Exactly.
I like it, John. I like it.
Indeed, yes.
Well, all I can say as we start out, I hope nobody thought I was spoiling anybody when I came up with the theory about 3 episodes ago that this was all in Billy's mind and he'd put it all together. It was all revealed in the room. I think that's just good writing. They had all of the clues there in the show that
absolutely.
It doesn't come out and sideswipe you when Billy has the realization that this all came from his mind, that he created the road. So there's only little things. He hadn't invented the witches like I thought he had, that he'd invented all of them. Those were still all pulled in by Agatha. Yeah.
And I mean, actually, it makes sense. In the good old phrase, it's not from the road he licked it.
Exactly.
Because, Billy can manipulate his and others' reality like his mother did in Westview.
He has the same tell as his mother, I think, as Agatha says.
Exactly. Yeah, this was really good. Yeah. I did like it. And I kind of liked how, in a sense, that con of The Witch's Road by Billy is replicated in ye olde times, effectively with the con of The Witch's Road being sort of passed into people's imagination. I mean, it's kind of almost like the non-magic form of something that isn't real, gaining sort of mythical or law, status of law. I mean, it's in the same way that, the patron saint of England is St. George, who slayed a dragon.
Apparently. Yeah.
Or you have the unicorn on, like, the royal crest. So, I mean, these mythical creatures, and it's kind of in a similar way.
But it's also like the idea of a story being passed around and suddenly gaining this this
reality
idea that there's a reality. Like over 2,000 people arrived in Dublin city centre last night because they mistakenly believed there was a parade happening. So they believed because of things that have been said online. So very similar to the story of the Witch's Road.
We might get another parade from it.
We might,
because everyone's saying, look how many people showed up. There's obviously a market, or there's a demand for it. So
I think it's hilarious that a prank has that many people in Ireland. Like, it's a tiny country. To get that many people out is very impressive. But then again, Irish people will go out for any kind of knees up, so why not? Good stuff. But let's get into our top 5 spells for these 2 episodes. We are going to do it kind of chronologically, though. I'll pick up little bits and pieces of bits that happen later on, I suppose, as we talk. But let's start out with our spell number 1. A deal with death, John. I think the opening of this, because we have the reveal last week's episode that Rio is Death, and I'm going to just call her Death from now on because her name was never Rio. Rio is not the character name. She is Death. But we have the moment where she collected Alice Rue Gulliver. That's where she disappeared to. Once Alice died, we have her talking to Death, and I must say this had such a sense of the Sandman version of Death, which was always really unusual. This ear to the dying as they're being escorted away from their bodies, and the kind of sadness that they have to experience when they're talking to people as they're going. And you have Alice going, "Is this all the time I get?" And Death says to her, "If I had a nickel for the amount of times I was asked that," kind of jokingly. But she is very careful with her and very kind with her. We hear, Alice kind of going, "Well, I've finally overcome this curse that I've had for my entire life. Now I can finally do great things." And she says, "But you're a protection witch and you died protecting someone. You have achieved the biggest life goal you could have achieved, really,
It's very matter of fact, and I kind of like the deadpanness that Death does. I mean, yes, she's right.
Yeah. But I don't think it's as harsh as
it's not harsh.
As Rio has been in the last few episodes. It feels like there's still a kind of a welcoming of
this is her
Alice
job. Exactly. Everything else, and the harshness probably is more directed at Agatha.
Yes.
And that's where you see that the relationship has broken down. But yes, you're right. With Alice Wu, she is relatively gentle with her and just very matter of fact, plain speaking to her. You've died, and you died protecting someone, and you're a protection witch.
Exactly. Yeah. She's realized her greatest possibility, protection witch, dying protecting someone. I liked it, but we do also have a bit of a conversation. So Agatha leaves and goes outside. Jen and Billy are talking just after the end of the last trial where Lilia died. And we learn a little bit more about death. We learn Jen saying the Green Witch is about growth and decay of all living things. So when Death said, or when Rio introduced herself to everybody, she said she is the Green Witch. That does kind of jibe with this a bit. She is the Green Witch, is all about growth and decay of all living things. So she is the biggest of all green witches because she is death.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting.
But, I mean, you have here then this deal being done with Death, between Death and Agatha.
Yes.
Because the whole point here is that Billy is seen by Death as a violation because he's stolen a second life in William Kaplan.
Yeah.
And he's going to try and do that again to try and find Tommy, and he can't be allowed to do it twice. So, you know, he's kind of disrupting, I think she calls it, he's disrupting the sacred balance.
Yes.
Which I really hope this isn't like the sacred timeline. I hope we're not introducing another concept. As soon as she said sacred balance, I was like, is this like Loki?
It kind of reminded me of it, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is now a thing in the MCU. There is, Doctor Strange saying there's only one option out of the 14 million options to save us from Thanos, like Loki saying the sacred timeline, and now we have Death saying there is a sacred balance that she needs to maintain, which we understood this is part of the reason why she was chasing down the witches, because they live a longer life than most other people. They should be dead far earlier, but witches like Lilia, who've lived for centuries, and Jen and Agatha are all people that shouldn't be alive in the world today, but they've had a much longer life than others. That's why Death's particularly need for them. At least that's my speculation. We'll talk a little bit more about the kind of deal Agatha has, because that's still a bit hazy for me. But the deal that she makes with Death here is, because Death can't take Billy, she can't kill him. If she kills him, he'll reincarnate, so she doesn't actually get the life that she wants to have. She makes a deal with her that she will convince Billy to give himself up willingly at the end of the road, as long as they're allowed to complete this task, complete this trip to the end of the road. Then she will hand over Billy willingly to Death.
Yes, but in return, it's that Agatha is allowed to go and be free.
Yeah.
And not have to deal with Death, her former lover.
Yeah.
And when the time comes where she does that, she doesn't want to see her face.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, and I thought there is that moment of sadness almost that comes across Death when she hears this from Agatha. It's not only that their relationship is broken down and that Agatha hates her, it is that she never wants to see her again. Ever.
Yeah.
And I think there's always been this bit between the conversations, or in between the words that are being said, that you feel like Rio Death wants to get back with Agatha. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's, but in this moment, it's again, to what extent does anyone trust Agatha? You know, because we've had this all along.
We have.
Where Agatha's reputation precedes her. She is the covenless witch. She is the witch that kills other witches.
Yeah.
And here she is effectively making a deal with Death to betray Billy. And I think this is interesting, and it certainly will come to a bit later, I, in this moment, believe that Billy wouldn't trust Agatha. Because of everything that's happened along the road previously. Yeah. The warnings from Jen, the warnings from Lilia, seeing his reaction to Agatha as well over various things that have happened along the road, like, the death of Alice Wu.
Yeah.
So this is the intrigue here for me is Agatha so untrustworthy that she will effectively sell out Billy? And the likelihood is that it's a yes.
Well, exactly. Although there's just two last little points I want to make about this section here. One is that Death says to Agatha, why do you let them believe these things about you? So it's like her saying to her, everybody seems to think you're this bad person who killed your son or sacrificed your son for a longer life. Why do you let them believe all of these bad things about you? So Death has always seen the good side of Agatha, almost. So the fact that she is untrustworthy, or the fact that she's maintained this reputation of being untrustworthy, Death seems to be saying to her, no, that's not the real you. I know the real you. And then one other tiny thing in here is just that when Death makes her exit, it's the reveal that the road doesn't really exist, because she walks up to the side of the road and just cuts her way out like it's a stage.
Yes,
exactly. And I like that. It's just a little subtle touch that the road isn't what you thought it was for the season so far. And by the end of the episode, you know that it's not. It doesn't exist.
Agreed,
really. But I just like that little touch as she says goodbye and cuts her way out.
Yeah, definitely.
Exit stage left, pursued by bear.
And on to spell number 2.
Exactly.
The end of the road. The final trial.
Yeah, I thought this was quite interesting because we have them all grouping back up together, going on the journey again, and then suddenly they're back at the start. They're back at their shoes at the beginning of the road. And technically, there isn't a final trial as such. We had seen it in all the previous episodes, them going into a trial to get past it, to get to the end of the road. What's happening here is they get to the end of the road and then go into the trial to earn their gifts, to earn the thing that they need to leave the road, almost. So it's slightly different. This seems to be Agatha's trial, as she says at the end. This is my trial to pass, but everybody does their piece and exits the road at this point. Were you kind of shocked by this moment when they arrive back at their shoes at the beginning of the road, John? What do you think of it, though?
No, I like this. I mean, I think that circularity of the road makes sense to me. That the path isn't always in one direction away from the starting point. That you sometimes come back to that beginning, but you're coming back to that beginning or that moment having changed because you've been through the trials along the way.
Absolutely.
And here
maybe the trial was the friends that we made along the way.
Exactly. And then you have this final trial, which is that you can do something differently. And actually in this moment, and Agatha calling it out as her trial, it's that Agatha, unbeknowing with Jen, helps her. With Billy, she helps him, and she helps herself.
Yes.
You know?
She creates life from death.
Exactly.
The big task.
And so I thought this made sense to me. And I like that it cleared up Jen's story. So as to why the doctor, she couldn't figure out how this doctor was able to bind her. And people were saying, well, it's in your head and all that. And then you suddenly see a sheepish Agatha, because she realizes, oh, you were passing through Boston at that time as well.
Yeah.
And that, she would bind witches for cash, even though she is a witch, so that she could get a bit of greenback, effectively.
I think by the end of the 9th episode, we've learned that Agatha really doesn't care for witches as such. She really doesn't care about their lives. She's as we said earlier on, and as the teen calls her, she is a covenless witch. I just called him the teen again for the first time in 3 episodes. As Billy says, she's a covenless witch. She doesn't care about other witches. So the idea of her taking banknotes for binding witches, it makes sense again by the end of the 9th episode. You've kind of seen how bad she's been to witches over the centuries. I do love the opening of it, of this trial, when they all roll out in body bags, and the teen gets out instantly, and Agatha gets out immediately, and they're all kind of freaked out by being in the body bags. And then Jen can't get the zip open, and Agatha turns around to Billy and goes, "Don't take away her struggle," by helping her out of the body bag. I just thought that was a really funny little moment from Agatha.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved the visual of the grow lights almost being like a huge clock face, and the tick down there, as we have Jen, as I say, doing the unbinding spell in order to, with a piece of Agatha's long hair, sort of winding it around her wrists. It almost reminded me of Harry Potter when you have Bellatrix Lestrange putting the unbreakable vow, I think it is, around Snape's wrist. It kind of felt very similar to that, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that, Agatha is almost trying to, goad her, put her off, whatever it is, and Jen is just very, you hold nothing, just chanting, you hold nothing,
Love that,
as she's doing this unbinding ritual. And then there were two, effectively, as Jen gets her power back and the road has given her what she was seeking, and she leaves the trial.
Yeah. And then it's Billy's turn. And again, as you say, this is Agatha creating life from death, something that's the opposite of what she's been doing for the last 250 years. She has brought Jen back, would have killed her at the beginning. She's working with Billy to bring Tommy's essence back. I love this scene. I thought it was a really powerful scene when she's asking him to remember the last time he was with Tommy. And it is that moment that we saw in WandaVision when the two of them are put to bed for the final time by Wanda and Vision, and they're saying goodbye to each other. And we have that guidance from Agatha, listen to his breathing, and even when his breathing stops, concentrate on your breathing. You won't lose him if you focus on him. I just thought it was really interesting. And then she guides him to put him into another vessel, similar to the way that he's put himself into the vessel of William Kaplan. And there was an interesting little touch from Agatha there as well when she's trying to guide Billy, and Billy says, I don't know how I did it the last time. How am I going to do it again? And she kind of says, well, that's just how magic works, isn't it? You never know how you did it, but let's work together. And eventually they find a drowning boy. And this, I think, is interesting because this is obviously the thing that's going to be followed up in future, in either a future series, either the Vision TV show or maybe an Agatha season 2. It's that the boy that he puts Tommy into is being bullied and dies by drowning. And you hear Billy really worried about it because he says his life will be hard. He has no one to care for him. He has no family. He has no one around to take care of him. So
yeah, but he's also concerned that he's killing this boy so that his own brother Tommy can live. But then disappears and doesn't have the question answered. And I love the fact that Agatha answers that question with him absent and says, sometimes boys die. And, like it's really kind of poignant, really, in a sense. Absolutely. That Billy is finding this vessel. I mean, it's ultimately what had perturbed death, was that, Billy can actually give Tommy another life by using this drowned boy's body, and finding it. I love the way that it's kind of, Billy's going, it's dark, I can't find this other life. Gradually then that darkness makes way to the flashes of the kid being bullied and being drowned, and then obviously that moment where Tommy is with that boy's body, and it all again, then there's one, you're down to one. It was really good. I really enjoyed these, for sure.
And then it's Agatha's turn.
Yes.
Just one thing, I don't think we said it earlier on, one thing that I just thought was interesting. Agatha does say this room is her basement very early on in the trial. All the rest of them had been houses that they'd gone into on the road. But Agatha very early on says there's no place like home when she looks around the room, even though it looks nothing like her actual basement. I guess you can tell by the size of it. And
I think
the door
it's the
out.
exit. I think it's more the exit. And also another reference back to the Wizard of Oz.
Of course.
Toto.
Of course. But it's her turn, and she has only seconds left. And in the locket that she's been holding for these 100 years, with the lock of her son's hair, of Nicky's hair, there's a dandelion seed underneath his hair, and she uses that to grow in the room to again create life from death. The locket that has held the hair of her dead son brings new life into the world. So again, taking the two episodes together, I think this is really important for Agatha, for the growth of Agatha herself as a character, and the change that we're seeing at this stage after hundreds of years of her being and doing the things she's done. There is a change that comes from Agatha here.
Absolutely. And interestingly as well, she escapes the road, but doesn't have her prize, which is magic.
Yeah.
And I think with that onto spell number 3, because she needs that magic to defend herself pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because we have the battle with death.
Yes, we do.
Between Agatha and Rio, or aka Death. And she's there trying to sort of counter Death here, and she doesn't have the magic. She doesn't have her power. And I love the fact that you just have Rio cackling on top of the roof.
It's great. Yeah.
I love the moment where she floats down from the roof as well. I think there's so much to enjoy in this battle.
What a costume for Death, though. It looks so cool. And I know we saw a little flash of it last week when the character was revealed for the first time of the skull going over Aubrey Plaza's face, but it's so well done.
It's really, really cool.
Really cool.
I also like 18th century Green Witch as well. I thought the cloak and a kind of the whole dress was just really, really well done.
Well, I was going to talk about it later on, but I'll talk about it here because I thought one of the interesting little costume touches, the 18th century Death does look like her cloak is made of moss almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this version of Death looks like a tree. It looks like the way the cloth is. It's not a pure green. It's this multicolored tree look to it. Is what it feels like. It feels like bark rather than moss.
So it's got browns and greens in there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful costume. Yeah.
The other costume we have is the full-on Wiccan costume.
Yes, we do.
Because we have Wiccan, aka Billy, aka William, coming in to help protect Agatha here.
I think it looks so cool, and look, it's one of the most comic accurate MCU costumes that we've seen for quite a long time. A lot of them don't translate very well to the screen and aren't directly taken over from the comic, but this is like his first appearance on the front cover of the Young Avengers. This is exactly what he looks like. Apart from the Crane. The Crane's more stylized for the show. But
the thing is, as well, he's unaware of why Rio is attacking Agatha here, because ultimately the standoff between Agatha and Death is because Agatha hasn't upheld her end of the deal that she made. So it's Agatha that's going to be coming with, you're coming with me, effectively, Death says, because Billy is not there to be taken. So I like this, but it also plays out a bit later on in this battle, because Billy doesn't know why this is happening, but comes to the rescue anyway, and it's great to see the costume, but it's also then again interestingly that he trusts her to feed from his power, and she does cut it off in time, but you do see him aging and withering from the power being taken, which is really subtle. Interesting. It is subtle.
And I think part of that, I know it was a joke earlier on in the season about when he was in his Maleficent costume, where he was talking about his cheekbones and saying that, if you can wear this costume, you got great cheekbones. But interestingly, as she's kind of sucking the life out of him, it's supposed to be on the cheekbones that you're seeing it. You're supposed to see his face kind of hollow in, as we see in the 9th episode, as the essence is pulled out of other witches. It is their faces start to sink. But I guess because he's quite a thin guy with good cheekbones, you don't notice it as much. But I like the subtlety of it. You're not sure whether it is going to be Agatha taking all of his power, or whether she will relent, whether his trust is placed in the right person. One other interesting touch that I like here is that the neighbours are looking on going, is it happening again? I wasn't sure whether they could see Rio or not. I don't think they could. I think they just see a storm coming in, and they're worried that this is like the battle that Agatha had with Wanda at the end of season 1 of WandaVision. So I just like that the neighbours are going, what is going on? Please don't say we're going to be in for more magic spells that will destroy our lives again.
Yeah, and it's interesting that sort of when Billy is leaving, you see them all looking at him like they don't recognise him, because he looks like William Kaplan,
of course,
not an older version of the Billy that they knew, and equally he doesn't kind kind of recognize them.
Yeah.
He has no memory of anything before, so he
just kind of puts his hoodie up and walks away, but he doesn't talk to them. I guess he's still a teen.
Hood of his cape.
He's still a teen though. He just puts his hoodie up and ignores all the adults that are around.
Yeah, exactly. The smelly adults.
Exactly. But I just kind of thought it was, given that we had young Billy living as a neighbor to all of these other characters, that he might have said hello or said something. But again, he's probably hiding that. He doesn't want them to know who he is, I suppose. But I just thought it was interesting that I had that. But the fight that we get here between Agatha and Death, when Billy has handed over some of his power to Agatha, I just thought was really interesting. There's one line that I didn't hear the first time we watched it, but saw in the subtitles, where Death says to Agatha, "Oh, power looks good on you," and Agatha responds with, "Yeah, baby, everything looks good on me."
Yeah, no,
it's a great Agatha line.
It's really good, and it's all kind of done in the background because, Death has just kind of like flicked Billy through the greenhouse effectively.
Yeah. But I like that he gets his own back and flicks her through the house, though. It just shows he was caught off guard. It's not that he's not powerful.
Absolutely. But ultimately, Agatha is there saying, this is futile. You can't fight Death. And you have Death coming back saying, I want my soul, effectively. And I like Billy steps up to say, "Take me." I mean, this is kind of interesting. I'm not entirely sure I figured out why this was the case, but he says, "Take me." And I like the fact that Agatha effectively goes to betray Billy and says, "Okay, then that's fine," and starts to walk off. It is to the point before that, Agatha does actually betray him here.
Yes.
And walks off. It's only with his mind talking, saying and infiltrating into her mind, saying, "Is this how Nikki died?" That it kind of stays her feet effectively from walking further away and turning round to snog Death effectively. But it's interesting because she was there ready to betray him.
She was. I took that as has been Agatha's personality for so long that she's willing to just play along with it further. So there's two other characters in this scene who both see who Agatha really is underneath all the bluster, underneath all of the cover that she's put on herself for the last 250 years. One is Death, as we said, that moment when Death said to her, "Why do you let people believe these things about you?" Yeah. And the other here is Billy, because Billy is holding Agatha and telling her she's a good person. And she says, "You're the only one that believes that of me. Nobody else in the world believes that I'm a good person." So it's almost as if when Agatha's walking away and sacrificing Billy, and she is sacrificing, absolutely, but it's almost as if, well, when he goes away, there's nobody else in the world that will believe this, and I can go on with my immortal life. And she's made that agreement with Rio, with Death, that she will live a very long life if Billy is taken.
Yeah, and I think as well, it comes back to something from the episode 9 where, she says how Billy reminds her of Nicholas in some of the things that he says and some of his mannerisms. So in that moment, that also makes sense to me. Yeah. That would stay her, and
but it isn't just. I suppose that there's more to it than just the line of Billy saying to her, "Is this how Nikki died?" It's much more to it than just, "I said one words and she changed her mind." It's that choice that she makes, and we'll definitely talk about this in episode 9. It's the choice that she made after Nikki died to then just go full bore bad guy, kill everything in her wake to make sure that her life lasts forever. She's realizing in this moment that her son would never have wanted her to do that. And Billy is reminding her of that her son was really compassionate. We saw that, or we will see that as we talk about it in the next piece. But it's that moment of realization for her that actually maybe I've made the wrong choice to stay alive by sacrificing other people.
And I think this, in a sense, so I really like these 2 episodes, but to me it's that they're out of kilter.
Okay.
That episode 9 to me feels like something that should have been sprinkled lovingly through the whole of this season, in some way. And apart from the right at the end, in order for that to make more sense.
Okay.
As episode 8, watching episode 8. Yes, you've got episode 9 then, and so on. But it's like, here's the dump after the fact to tell you what we know. And I kind of, and because to me, up till then, all the way through then, it's you cannot trust Agatha. And Billy is being told this.
Yeah.
And he's even said it to her. So anyway, nonetheless, it is rectified for me in episode 9. But I like this anyway because I do think the death of, firstly, the betrayal of Agatha, even though I anticipated it, I was surprised that she did, because I thought they were kind of moving past that. But I think it was always the danger. But also the death of Agatha, I just thought was really well done. I thought it was dead striking, really.
Yeah.
I kind of wasn't expecting her to die. And of course, we see that she doesn't fully die. Her corporal form is retained in ghost form.
Absolutely.
Which is really cool. Certainly given the video game Midnight Suns.
Well, yeah.
Where we see her in ghost form as well.
But in comic books, the reason why the video game took that is because in comic books, Agatha is a ghost and has been a guide for Wanda. She is in the ghostly form. She's been around for many, many years. And there are times when she is a ghost. But yeah, it's just fun because we played about 100 hours of Midnight Suns. I think we played it through twice. And Agatha is a really central character in that. And this is the only form of Agatha I've ever seen. And a lot of is that version in the, in the video game. So now we're like, they've now got a comic accurate ghostly version of Agatha.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I really liked. I also like the fact, and I know it's probably an obvious pun, but I love the fact that it's the kiss of death that she gets, quite literally, and that's what takes Agatha.
I love all the kind of the flower and shroom mound that forms in the garden. I just think it's really pretty.
Absolutely, the Green Witch, the goddess of growth and decay. And that's exactly
really
what happened.
Pretty.
I thought it was cool. And again, in retrospect, after watching the 9th episode, I like that we have Rio Death standing over the grave of Agatha for a moment. There's definitely a tear in her eye at that moment as well. Very similar to Agatha over Nikki's grave later.
And she turns to Billy to say, you may go. Yeah. I don't need to collect your soul.
Yes, she does. And Billy goes back home. And, we get kind of the wrap up that you would think this is the final episode. Billy is talking to his parents, saying how sorry he is, and explains to them what happened off screen, and then goes back to his bedroom. And then that's the moment when everything flips on its head, and the real reveal happens. And this is partly why I think episode 9 works really well for me, because just like the road itself, episode 8 leading into episode 9 makes this show, it's a circular show. If you didn't catch the idea that Billy had created the road earlier on in the season when we were talking about, if you didn't catch that and you get to episode 9, you find all of the cons and all of the twists and turns, you're going to want to go back to the start of the season and watch Agatha's performance throughout the season so far. All of the times that she was told, you lead us on the road, you're the guide, and avoided anything like that, avoided providing any guidance because she'd never been on the road before.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly been signposted for sure.
Yeah.
Because even, not only about Billy's room or William's room and seeing that, but it's also the notion that Agatha really didn't know what she was doing on the road as well.
Absolutely. And she wasn't doing any of the tasks. The first task, she tried to avoid being involved in it because it must have just come as an absolute shock to her that she's suddenly on this famed road and being told you've been here hundreds of times before, or you've been here before, and we know you can lead us. So, so I thought that was a really good moment when we have his realization when he's looking through all of the posters in his room and going, hang on a second, did I do this? And then we hear the cackling of Agatha in the background.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the walk through of all those markers of the road in his bedroom.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. Yeah, definitely.
I know we're only in the middle of our spells, John, but that's kind of the end of episode 8. Would you like to give your rating for episode 8? Do you defend episode 8?
Oh, I do. I give this 4 road closures out of 5.
Very good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. As I say, I thought it was very visual still. I liked how it concluded. I loved the fight between Rio and Agatha. I liked seeing sort of Billy in full uniform, effectively. I liked the little twist here and final reveal that it is Billy who's able, like his mother, to manipulate his and other people's reality.
I love the call out from Lilia's reading to him, the card reading that she did, where it calls back to her going, "You are the magician, you can turn all your goals into reality," which is what he quite literally did with the road.
It was really good, just sort of piecing all that together. It was really good. I think for me, I kind of just need the latter part of episode 9 would have bolted on really nicely here.
Yeah,
with that and the 18th century stuff just peppered throughout to give that sort of developing story of Agatha and her son.
Right.
But that's just my own personal view. It's easy to say, it's difficult to write that in, but I still like episode 9, and we'll get to that. But this I really enjoyed. Give it 4 road closures out of 5.
Yeah, well, let's get on to our next spell then. Let's get on to episode 9 with spell number 4. Agatha's other deal with death. Yeah, back in 1750, we have a pregnant Agatha running through the woods, or seems to be really in pain, very close to delivery of her child, I guess, as well. But she's on her own. She is a covenantless witch, and she's running through the forest here pregnant. The one thing that I was really surprised about, because this episode is so focused on giving you our backstory of who Agatha is and why she becomes the, let's say, villainous character that she is when we meet her first in WandaVision, why she is that villainous character. That's what this episode's all about. What I was really surprised about is she's already in the relationship with Death, and Death has already given her, as she described it, more protection than any other living being. I kind of thought we'd get that meeting of her and Death. We get a bit of their relationship maybe at some point during this flashback episode, and why Agatha has been gifted with this long-lasting life, the inability to die, or why she's killing witches and that's allowing her to extend her life. It's all peppered in dialogue to Nicholas, but she dumbs it down a bit for him because he's only 6 when they're having their conversations. She doesn't really say why she's doing what she's doing, but she says she does it to keep her alive. And at the beginning here, she's having so much trouble with the birth of her son. We see Death arriving to take Nicholas away, to take Agatha's son. And Agatha's pleading with Death, saying, "You can't take him. Please don't take him."
Yeah.
And all Death offers her, all Death can offer her, is to give time with her son.
No, I mean, this was, I found this really kind of affecting, actually, because I think that kind of brutality of Death here.
Yeah.
But, and I know this is going to sound a bit weird, I think, but the beauty of what she's wearing with the green, and I think it's that kind of stark contrast, and I think that's why I noticed that sort of bright green flowing cloak, and the kind of corseted dress with that intricate lace work, and it really stood out. But then it stood out on, in contrast to kind of, in a sense, the coldness of the kind of brutality of taking an unborn child, which is what Agatha is pleading for. And I just thought this was really kind of stark. And that's why then Agatha holding the newborn Nicholas, but realizing that she's only got so much time. You know, it's the tragedy of that, and we get that where she says, you know, I can trick a feeble mind into doing what I want. I can do all these spells, have all this power, but I can't divine when she'll return. You know, I don't know when death is going to come back for you.
Yeah.
It's like living on that knife edge. You know,
it can be, and I suppose that's the interesting way that I take these scenes, and I don't think of this as much magic here. What death offers Agatha in this moment is what every parent has when their child is born. None of us knows how long our time is going to be on Earth. None of us knows how long we're going to have with our children or with our parents.
No, yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
When your child is born, you could die in childbirth.
Certainly not in 1750.
Absolutely. She could have died in childbirth right there after Nicholas.
But that's what I
assumed
was happening. That's why death showed up. So she would never have any time with Nicholas. It wasn't, so it was almost going to be a stillborn. So actually, death does provide life to Nicholas, but on a time-limited basis, because she should have taken him then.
Yes.
And all the way through it's the mention that you look sickly or you look ill. You need to be fed, to put color in your cheeks. It's that sickly look.
Yeah.
And absolutely, Agatha enjoys all the time she has, and that's really wonderful. But it's also it's the other side of it. It's the yin and the yang of that, where yes, she's making to some degree the most of her time. She's using him as a lure to kill people. And I do like the fact that you have Nicholas say, well, why do you kill witches? And she says, to survive. And he's like, well, can't we survive with those witches without you killing them? And of course, because of the deal with death, you know, that she'll provide these dead bodies for it.
Well, that's the thing I wish there's a little more clarity on.
Yeah.
I wish there was just that scene where we saw the deal.
Agreed.
You know?
Because it feels like a third deal. There's a deal that she will provide the bodies of witches, because Agatha is able to take all their power and wither them on the vine, which means they die quicker than what they would normally do.
Yeah.
There's
and Agatha
the deal for Nicholas's life, and in that moment, as well as then the deal we see with death to try and give Billy's life over to her. So
but I wish we'd seen the deal, because the other way the show has explained this to us is if she lives with a coven of witches, at some point she'll annoy them enough that they'll attack her and she'll suck the life out of them and take their magic, and then they will try and kill her again. Or they would kill Nikki if the two of them were there, if she did this in their company. Or they even learnt that she'd done it before, that they would kill her and Nikki. That's kind of what the show is telling us. But it does seem like she had made this deal that she can live forever if she continues to provide the bodies of witches. That's what I believe the offer is, and what the deal is with Rio, with death. But I just wish that had been a little bit more clear. And also, it feels like that deal extends to Nikki. When she kills witches and takes their essence, takes their power, it keeps Nikki alive for a bit longer as well, is what it seems like.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that, but you're right, because the time where he then just doesn't want to go through with the ruse. Agatha gets her sort of five portions a day, then you have death coming for him that night.
Yes. Yeah.
So it could be linked. Yeah.
Interestingly, I know this, I don't know whether this means anything again, because this is the last episode of the season, so I don't know whether we'll ever return to this, but interestingly, that moment when he refuses and says he's too sick, he says his mother needs him home, and that night he dies. And his mother, Agatha, is in the room there with him. Rio and Agatha have had a relationship in the past, and I wonder if that is him saying, my other mother.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Rio needs him home. If he knew, because he walks out the door and disappears.
Yeah.
As Agatha walks out with him. So I don't know. It was just something about the way that line was delivered by Nicky, where he says his mother needs him home. I just thought that was representative of the couple that's there, of Agatha and Rio. So, but the other big thing that happens throughout this here is just this really cute traveling tale or traveling song that Nicky kicks off.
The windy road.
Yeah, and it's instant. Like you catch it instantly. They've done such a great job winding the song into the series so far. The minute he starts to sing it, you go, "Oh, that's the Witch's Road that he's singing." And this, it turns out to be their song they created together, as a lot of parents do with the kids, having a little song together, a little story that they create together for their travel throughout the harsh life that they have, living in forests everywhere.
That's it. I like that they sing and develop it together, as they're traveling together on the road, and it's to entertain themselves. But then, the last moment we see it being used to entertain a tavern, and to effectively pique the interests of other witches who were there, and to lure them into Agatha's power-hungry, self-centered heart. And I quite like this. I thought it's both cute and then it's manipulated more and more by Agatha, to the point that with the death of Nicky that evening, then we kind of have that montage of her then using the law, as in Lore, because I'm northern, you see, so if I say law and law, they sound exactly the same.
So you couldn't do that very famous podcast.
No, exactly. So law, as in the law of the Witch's Road, the Lore.
Yes.
It just pulls in, as we see over time, all these other witches to the sort of vacuum that is Agatha.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before that moment, though, as after Nicky dies, I do think there's a really stunning scene that Catherine Hahn plays after he dies, where she's shouting, going, "No, I want more time." And I think, again, as I said earlier on, regardless of this being a show about magic, I kind of think that's what happens if you're a parent that sadly has lost a child. No matter when it happens, that you want more time, even though you've always been told that your time is limited on the planet. It will never be enough. You will always want more time. And I think this just the way Catherine Hahn plays that moment. And then as she's sitting by Nicky's grave, mourning him, she says the line that defines the rest of her character, defines the next centuries, which is, "I bury my heart here with you, my child." Agatha's often described as being heartless, from WandaVision all the way through to Agatha all along. She's being described as heartless many, many times. And that's the moment. Her heart died with her child dying, is what she's saying there. And very quickly, a witch comes up and says to her, hang on a second. I noticed that song, that's sung by Agatha. She recognizes that song, "You Must Know the Witch's Road." And Agatha concocts her plan very quickly in her head. This is a great way to lure in covens. And it's wonderfully filmed, these centuries of taking witches' powers as the song just gets more powerful.
And as it goes into the singing of the Witch's Road by Lilia, Alice, Jen, and Mrs. Hart, and then it actually working, and you sort of transported back to that moment earlier in the season. So it was really good.
And we get the signature Catherine Hahn look straight into the camera and go, "Wow!" Like she just has that moment going, "Hang on a second, how the hell did this work? I created this song with my child, and suddenly there is a path into the Witch's Road. How the hell did that happen?" Love it. Love that moment. It's the opposite of a wink into the camera. It's a shock face into the camera. So really enjoyed that. And that takes us right up to date and right into our spell number 5, the true end of the road.
Yes.
And we're back to the end of last episode with Agatha in Billy's room. doing her boo because now she's a ghost. So we see her incorporeal form now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Her translucent form, looking very different from how we've seen her in the past, but she's starting to get used to living in this world.
Well, she says, I did die, but I took a calculated risk.
Yes.
So even in that moment of seemingly selfless sacrifice, she was taking a calculated risk that this particular magic would work and she would come back as a ghost. But as she says, still figuring out the rules as she tries to slap Billy, but effectively is giving him air slaps.
I do really like that.
Which was really good. I love that.
Yeah. I was wondering what the calculated risk was, actually. That makes a lot more sense. She did not sacrifice herself for Billy, she says. And I was wondering, was the calculated risk, would death really take her? Given their relationship in the past, when she goes up and kisses Rio, kisses Death, would Death actually take her? I thought that was the calculated risk, but no, it makes sense that she had a backup plan. If she died, she'd come back as a ghost.
Exactly, and then it talked. There's that moment coming back of Billy realizing that the road was made by him, but him getting racked with guilt at the idea that, well, actually his projection, his reality that he created, killed Lilia on the road, Alice on the road, and Mrs. Hart as well.
Sharon.
The lady next door. And I love that. Who's that from Agatha? Really
the gardening woman.
Yeah.
But again, I know this is obvious, but I will say it because I say obvious things all the time. Now that you've seen the history of Agatha up until this point, how many witches' lives she's taken over time, the idea that she couldn't remember Sharon Davis, couldn't remember her name, couldn't particularly place just another dead person. I kind of get it now.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you have Agatha being very truthful, but, if you work out, you actually saved a life, Jen's life, because on day one, I was doing exactly what I'd done over the course of the previous kind of 2.5 centuries, 3.5 centuries, which was I was going to kill them all to take their power.
Yeah.
The only one really, Lilia sacrificed herself.
Yeah.
Alice, well, I killed. It's Mrs. Hart who is the death.
Yeah.
The true, I guess, non-witch death here.
And that's why she said to Billy after she died, that's why she said to him, I didn't think you had it in you, kid, because he killed someone.
Yeah.
That was, literally quite quickly after they got on the road. That's when she died. But Jen is alive, and we have a quick flash to Jen crawling out from under the ground at the opening of Westview and flying off very similar to Wanda with her powers.
No, definitely.
Didn't she fly off quite similar to
I
Wanda Maximoff?
don't understand why she appeared from under the ground.
Because they were underground.
By Agatha's house.
Yeah, because they were actually underground. That's what the train system that we saw a couple of episodes ago. There was a thing that Sharon Davis said about underneath Westview, the only thing you'll find is a tram system, a subway system that's or trolley system, whatever it was, that's been broken down for years. And we actually saw the trolley system. Jen was beside it, and Lilia was beside it. So they were underground at some point, just not on the Witch's Road. It was just, I guess, covered by the imagination of Billy to look like the Witch's Road. So yes, they were underground at some point. But yeah, Jen's off out in the ether. Hopefully we'll see her again in the future.
I hope so.
Yeah, it'd be great if we...
It feels as though Lilia gave her quite an important tag, as the future.
Yeah.
So that would be quite interesting to see if we see Jen again.
Yeah.
But then Billy goes effectively out being racked with guilt. Initially, so I thought when he was doing the pentagram and putting the candles out and everything, I thought this was to try and bring back Lilia, Alice, and Mrs. Hart to undo what he was doing. But in the end, he's trying to banish Agatha, to send her towards the light, to Rio's toxic embrace, he says. So he's there sort of chanting the Latin to banish Agatha. You see Agatha starting to fade, but then sort of a last gasp attempt to try and grab the locket that he's got of hers, which is the personal item required for the spell.
Yeah.
In the end, she manages to knock the locket out because, he's screaming at her, "Why are you still here?" And she's like, "Because I can't face him. Nicholas Scratch." And in that sort of outpouring, she's able to connect with her locket and knock it out of Billy's hand to stop this spell.
I think Billy also stopped it because of that admission from
no, absolutely, absolutely. As I say, I just felt this maybe went a little. It felt quick. It felt a little out of the blue. Like he's trying to actually banish her here, get rid of her. And I know that moment, and it's all comes from what we've seen.
Yeah, but Billy didn't see that.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
and Billy wasn't told about her. I mean, even if it was done in a way that it was Agatha telling them of Nicholas Scratch, a bit like Agatha actually trying to correct the record that Rio has said, "Why'd you let them think the worst of you?" And begins to tell her tale.
Well, I do also think there's a big way it could have been fixed, and an easy way it could have been fixed. Billy's a mind reader. We've seen him been able to read everybody's mind. So if it just had that moment where he gets the rush of the memories that we've just seen on screen, and then she says, "Oh, I can't face Nicholas," you go, okay, well, I understand that now, because this is all based, it all hinges on the choice that Agatha made to go and destroy every coven of witches and use the song that her son created to take out more and more witches over the centuries. It all hinges on that decision that she's made, that she couldn't possibly face her son Nicholas, who she lost at such a young age. And if you don't buy into that, and if you don't get that, then you would think that Agatha's just a bad person who has no possible redeeming features. But this is her moment of redemption, the start of her arc of redemption, let's say. I don't think she's ever redeemed during the show, Agatha, all along, but this moment of her going, "I couldn't possibly face him," is her realizing how bad she's actually been since her son died.
Or what she's already and has always known, but has suppressed it so much. And you're right, totally get that. But it's not in her power. It's in Billy's. And Billy knows her as the person that Wanda effectively destroys, and has been told not to trust her. So what I mean is, it's kind of like mental warfare, really, in the sense that, for 8 episodes, we've been saying, don't trust this person.
Yeah.
Final episodes, you do. But the point at which you are told to do that she is good and can be trusted is kind of in that final moment. And you're like, I just feel the balance is off, possibly, in the storytelling. Not that I disagree with what's happening. And that's the thing. And it's easier said than done, as I said.
I do think it leaves the character of Agatha in a place where she can still be the same antagonistic Agatha that we've seen for WandaVision and Agatha all along. She's not redeemed, I don't think. There's just a moment where Billy's going to say, well, I won't banish her. I understand somehow. I understand why she doesn't want to go and die and then see Nicholas and face him. And I'm going to team up with her to go and find my brother.
Yeah, I know. I think it was just like the Stairway to Heaven sort of, with the bright lights, and it's like, we could be a good team. I mean, effectively creating a coven of 2 here.
Yes, which is a joke from earlier on in the season when
go and find Tommy.
Is a coven true or coven of 2? And this is a coven of 2.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily a coven true though.
I just feel it could have been woven in, so this didn't feel like it came out of the blue.
Okay, all right. I don't think it came out of the blue myself, but I take it. I understand.
But I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. And that closes out the episode. The 2 of them now going off on their quest to find Tommy, and I hope they find him soon. Just by that description of a bullied kid who was drowned by people in an area in a town where he has no family and no friends, doesn't bode well for poor Tommy suddenly arriving back. At least when Billy went into William's body, he had parents that were taking care of him and helped him for 3 years, and then had a boyfriend who was side by side with him taking care of him. Tommy doesn't sound like he's in anywhere close to that position. It's not going to be a good place. So hopefully they find him soon, and we don't just have Agatha All Along season 2 coming in 5 years' time, and they're all in their 20s, and all the bad things happen to poor Tommy. But if Tommy has the powers of the Tommy that we know in WandaVision, he can run away at least.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, they'll find him in time for Young Avengers.
Hopefully. Although, if they take their time on that, it'll be old Avengers, new Avengers.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Any notes, anything else we haven't talked about that you want to just bring into this final discussion on this episode?
No, I've got no notes, really, for the rest, for the 2 episodes.
There's just one cool scene or one cool moment that I really liked when Billy's in this banishing place in the basement for Agatha. I just love that he uses his powers to get a spellbook back. Just the way he uses the powers and moves to get his spellbook back so that he can banish Agatha, I thought was really cool because he left down the road. So that's cool.
Yeah, I also like that Billy makes a kind of memorial to Alice, Lilia, and Sharon.
Do you know, the way that was done, I must say, when I watched it, I had a bit of a tear in my eye. I thought it was really lovely.
I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah. They seal off the road with this seal of the names of the fallen witches.
Yeah.
Quite cool.
I think, actually, I do have another note, which is, we have no post-credit or mid-credit scene at all, which is kind of interesting.
All season, nothing. Not a one on any episode.
I know.
At all, which is a shock. You usually have one post-credit scene. I think every show that they've had has had one at least in one episode, but there's never any in this season. I think the only thing that actually changed was just the title card Agatha All Along in episode 8 when it's revealed, or when Billy has that moment of realization in episode 8. The title card of Agatha All Along goes over his bedroom rather than over the forest that we've seen for the other 7 episodes. I thought that was a cool little change in those credits because nothing else changed. But it was just, hang on a second, we're actually just been looking at his wall the whole time rather than looking at the forest.
Excellent. Yeah.
So, quite cool. So, John, do you defend the finale of Agatha All Along or the finale of WandaVision Season 2, as I'm going to be calling it in my head?
Yes, I do. I do defend this episode. I give it 3.5 witching wonders out of 5. Again, I really, really enjoyed this. I loved seeing 1750 Agatha. I loved the backstory with Nicholas. Sometimes I just wonder, why are shows holding certain things back? To me, this should have kind of been about Billy and Agatha and that whole showdown with death in Westview, to be honest, and to come straight back into 1750. Love the backstory, absolutely love it, absolutely wanted it, but I kind of wanted that to be sort of as expertly placed and peppered through this series as, and it's just my own choice, in the same way that you got the hints around Billy being the one creating the road.
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt like, as I say, like you're being told not to put your hand in the fire. You don't. And then one person says, put your hand in the fire. And then you put your hand in the fire.
Okay.
Despite everything up until then saying don't trust her. And you even have Agatha being untrustworthy by seemingly giving Billy up to death. So the whole kind of going off in the sunset to rescue Tommy, I love it. But I wanted it kind of, it's more a structure thing for me, I think, on the series, but I enjoyed everything that was contained in episode 9 and actually seeing that again, second time through, it does connect much better. But I still hold that I think this would have been nice peppered through, because as I said at the start, this felt like the mythology, the tale of the Witch's Road that ultimately is a story, but somehow ends up being like, the Lost Cities of Gold.
Yeah, love
people go searching for it.
Yeah.
And it's a manipulation of the reality in the same way that Billy had done through the road. And that those two sort of contrasting off one another through this show, I think would have been really good. And that evolution of Agatha and Rio's or Death's relationship, I think would have been really good. But yeah, for me, I do defend this episode with 3.5 witching wonders out of 5.
Excellent.
Derek, do you defend episode 9 of Agatha All Along?
Yes, I absolutely do. I think I'm a lot higher on these last 2 episodes than you are, John. I really enjoyed them, and I think keeping back the true nature of what happened to Agatha and who she has been for these last couple of centuries kind of allowed me as a viewer of the show for the last 8 episodes to go, oh, actually, maybe she's not that bad. Maybe she just misunderstood, and then you realize, well, actually, she made a decision. That moment in episode 9 where you realize she made her decision when her son died, that's it, her heart is gone, she is going to be the bad one. I kind of like that because there's so many redemption stories of villains now. That's something that people want to do all the time, that they try to do it with the Joker. This idea that behind every villain is a reason why they're as villainous as they are. They're not just bad guys. So having it done this way with Agatha was refreshing. It was different. It was interesting. I do think the 2 things I'm really missing from the show are the deal with death that Agatha made, that means she gives over witches for centuries. I think that's quite important to find out that that's her deal, and that's the only deal Death is willing to give her. And that's why she won't keep Nicholas Scratch alive forever, because she's already got that deal. We never saw the deal in the show. I just thought it was weird that we didn't. And having Billy being able to read her mind and learn the story so that's why he forgives her. I think those are 2 things he could have done and probably should have been in the 9th episode. But overall, I think the series has been so interesting, and it feels like this was out there. This is the series I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. We went into it going, well, this will be a bit of fun. It's a Marvel show. We love Marvel shows. And it's been a lot more than a bit of fun. It's been a really enjoyable show each week. I've really enjoyed theorizing again, because we don't get to do that very often in Marvel shows anymore. They kind of put everything on the table and tell you what's actually happening. So this show being as twisty and turny as WandaVision season 1 has made it great. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. I think with that, it is off for a drinky poos at the Agatha All Along Cauldron Quiz.
Yeah, I need a flagon of ale, John, after that.
Yes, indeed. We have 2 questions, fellow defenders, fellow quizzers. For episode 8, the question is, how long has Billy been gone from his home when he returns to his parents' house?
Yeah, this is a bit of a surprise to me. So,
yes.
So definitely go check that out. You'll see it in the episode. John, do you want to get the question one more time?
Yes. How long has Billy been gone from his home when he returns to his parents' house?
Very good. And the final question for episode 9, John.
How many covens do we see Agatha take out with the con of the Witch's Road following the death of Nicholas?
Fantastic. In that cool scene. And we're not going to include the coven with Alice and Lilia and Jen, because that coven wasn't taken out, right? It's just the other covens that yes. Agatha took out. Do you want to get the question one more time, John?
How many covens do we see Agatha take out with the con of the Witch's Road following the death of Nicholas?
That's it. That's 9 questions you've got now for Agatha All Along. If you'd missed any of them, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. There's a pub quiz section there that has all 9 questions. And send us in your correct answers to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in a chance for getting your hands on some Agatha goodies. We want to hear from you. Get them into us as soon as possible. And as soon as the making of episode for Agatha is out, we will be recording our final episode of the Agatha All Along podcast, which will reveal all the answers to those questions as well, and the winner of our pub quiz.
Excellent stuff. Let us get on to our feedback section.
Our first bit of feedback is actually on episode 7. It came in just after we'd finished our recording. It came in from the Joyful Baker, who says, "Hi again, loved episode 7. What a ride. Lilia was wonderful, and this one gave me all the feels. I was wondering about the writing on the table she was sitting at with her teacher, since it was the same shape as the table in the task. On the side of the top, it has the Latin in nave expeditus, sistam celer quam ventus." I hope I pronounced that close to how it's supposed to be written. But the Joyful Baker says, Google says that it translates to be swift in the ship as swift as the wind. A search for this saying came up with nothing, but when you look for ships and tarot cards, the ship is commonly featured in the Art of the Death card. However, not Ria's death card in the show. Interesting. Very excited for the last 2 episodes next week. Cheers, the Joyful Baker. I had to have a look into this.
Oh, excellent stuff.
Yeah, I just looked a little bit further, and apparently the full phrase on the table is in nave expeditus sis tam celer quam ventus morse, which apparently adds the word morse, which is death. So it actually translates to you are as fast as the wind of death on a ship. So I would think that's a reference to the fact that Lilia has been outrunning death for as long as she has, because she hasn't been accepting her fate. She's been running away from death and now has realized this is her end. And that's why it's on the table. That's what I think.
That would certainly make sense because that's, I mean, in a sense, that's the whole episode of her trying to face up to death.
Yeah.
But it's a great catch, Joyful Baker, on the side of the table. And I love this stuff. It's
Absolutely.
Just really, really cool that level of detail is brought into the show for this character of Lilia, so good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you didn't quote the what was on the other table in the task, because that was our pub quiz question from last week's episode. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Great catch, Joyful Baker.
Yeah, thanks, Joyful Baker. On this episode, an email from Coffee and Vodka who says, "Greetings, fellow Force Ghost Defenders. Well, better than the conclusion of WandaVision. Not as good as episode 7. Agatha being the source of Jennifer's binding was disappointing. A writer's shortcut in an otherwise okay ending. Agatha stopping short of killing Billy when draining him showed that all the deaths that went before were not part of some curse or automatic function beyond her control. In short, she is a murderous villain and not a victim of an uncontrollable power. So Billy's acceptance of her kind of makes him an accessory after the fact, adding some nice depth to his character. I guess the road being his creation and the deaths resulting from it helped him inform his decision. In for a penny, in for a massacre. It was nice to see Alice get a proper farewell in a scene that was very Sandman in nature. Also, does this mean that Billy and Tommy are eternal? What wasn't answered is why Agatha allows the belief that she had something to do with Nicky's death when it was her entreaties to death which extended his life. Finally, do you think this is all for Jen, or will we see more of her in an upcoming show? Off for another rewatch and the long wait for Mephisto's debut in Ironheart. 4 lyrical long cons, murdered Mrs. What's-her-names, and blind bindings out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka. Excellent stuff, Coffee and Vodka. Yeah, I think you're on par with sort of me here. And I'm certainly waiting for Mephisto to turn up. I could see him rocking an Iron Man suit, actually.
Do you know, I'm
in Devil Red.
Yeah,
I think.
I know they made a mention of Mephisto in this season, but that was definitely just to have a bit of fun with the fans who thought he was going to turn up in WandaVision. But given that we have the return of the Catholic Daredevil coming in March, maybe Mephisto could appear in Daredevil Born Again.
Could.
Mephisto Born Again.
And actually, just thinking about Mephisto, because yes, it was a little kind of breadcrumb there, a little sort of nice little playful gesture, I think, from the showrunner and the writers. I was just wondering whether, the Black Heart identified by Lilia, also, in the text message from Billy's boyfriend, and also I think someone said that Billy's earring was a stud in the shape of a heart as well.
That was it? That's all it was?
It was, wasn't it?
Just a little red herring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's again, one of the things I like about this now being a circular show where you go back to the start and you watch it all through again, knowing the things you know, it adds to it, I think. It'll make it more interesting because a lot of the stuff that actually happened on the road, a lot of the stuff that you're speculating about is actually just things brought in from Billy's room, Billy's life. So that's really cool. Interesting that Coffee and Vodka pointed out something about Agatha. I said earlier on in the season that I wondered if Agatha was unable to stop her taking the entire life force of a witch. I'm still not sure whether she was able to stop in the past or whether she just chose to ride it out because she made that choice at the graveside of Nikki that she was going to take all of the lives. But here she makes the choice to not take Billy's life. But I think she was teetering on the edge, though. I think there is a moment where you see her genuinely go, oh, this feels great to have the power. And she does look like she's just going to take Billy's life and then chooses not to, chooses to let him live here. So no, she doesn't seem like it's a curse or it's completely automatic that she's going to kill them. But I just wonder if she just hadn't tried in the past to stop herself, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent stuff, Coffee and Vodka. Thanks so much for the feedback.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka. Let's head on over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/TV Podcast Industries. First up, Brian Mersk says, other than some great character building, not really too sure I really get what the point of the entire show was. Interesting, Brian. I guess not on the joy train for Agatha all along this time. I really enjoyed it. I guess once again it's the journey and the development of the characters that is what the show is about, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is a big universe, and hopefully we'll see them all again.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the problem with connected universe, though, is that in order to build the platform and certainly through TV shows where you're 6, 7, 8 hours, sometimes it might get lost if it's building towards a movie that has the payoff, and I guess I can understand that is a risk here for Marvel.
Yeah, but one of the things I have loved about the feedback about Agatha All Along specifically is that you don't have to watch anything else. You can just watch Agatha All Along on a loop over and over again.
No, absolutely.
and sometimes the point of a show is just to tell a great story with some characters,
Yeah, absolutely.
I like as a big comic book fan, a big Marvel fan specifically, I'm more of a fan of these stories that go on for years. At times, the one-shots are very, very rare in Marvel, where they just have one issue that comes out and tells you one story that's self-contained. That's not really something that Marvel has ever done. So they do maybe once every couple of years, they do a one-shot issue, but it always builds into something else. And
I guess it's cheaper to do a comic, though, than a movie.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. But yeah.
I mean, that's as I say, it's more of the risk, I think, that things don't pay off or take so long to pay off. Yeah. It's different medium, so not necessarily the same.
But it does depend on what the payoff you're looking for is. The payoff here for the character of Agatha is that she has now aligned herself with the good guy. She's stopped her.
Or has he aligned herself with being a bad? I mean, this is the point.
But she doesn't have the ability to take the power of other witches now. She's become a ghost. She hardly has the power to touch anything anymore. So.
In for a penny, in for a massacre.
Well, that's the way it goes.
And again, maybe not off the road he licked it, given Wanda.
Yeah, perhaps.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying it's like it's an interesting unresolved thing. Again, with Jen, will that get resolved? We'll see. Or is that the resolution, her flying off into the sunset?
And she's out there with her powers now, yes. Yeah. Thanks for that, Brian, and thanks for sending in your feedback. I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as we did.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Also, Paul Tenchi Lee says, Episode 6 cemented the very real possibility that William Billy is the real driver behind the road, and now we find out that Nicholas and Agatha created the song, and she used it as a con for hundreds of years to gain power. These 2 episodes are arguably the heart of why this season exists, and were slightly less satisfying to me because they weren't as tightly crafted as Episode 7. However, 8 and 9 sets down various bits of lore, gives Agatha a new job, and opens up the route for Billy Wiccan to continue on the MCU.
Yes, absolutely.
There you go. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with your sentiment there, Paul, for sure. Definitely.
Absolutely. And anything that keeps Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke in a job, I'm all up for it.
Excellent stuff. Thanks again, Paul. Courtney McLean says, I really wanted to love the finale. I enjoyed it, but it felt like a lot of build-up and was a bit hollow in the end. Too many loose ends and ambiguous one-liners. I get wanting to set up the next season. I just feel like there were elements to this season that should have had more conclusion. And these episodes fell flat after Lilia's episode. How exactly is Jen the way forward? Why did Agatha promise Rio bodies? Why did Rio want Agatha dead in the first place? Just lover's scorn? I loved how the show kept me guessing, and it was beautiful. I wish it had made me feel more of anything at the end. Thanks so much, Courtney. That's really interesting. And I do have sympathy with what you're saying, because certainly I think for episode 6 at the end with Billy with the crown and not really seeing all of it and then suddenly going off in a different direction, I do feel, the thing that you do is you want a conclusion, whether that's that they find Tommy at the end of the road or that it's, the going off together is because they're going into the MCU and it's a new story. So I have sympathy for what you mean around everything having to be left for another time, because in this world of television now, there may never be another time.
And I personally get the resolution that Tommy has been brought back into the world, though. We now know that he's there, he's in a body, he's alive. And while Billy and himself didn't reunite at the end of the road like Billy thought was going to happen, he's brought him back at the end of the road. He's brought him back into the world. So that in itself can be a resolution for the show for me. I do agree with you about some of the outstanding questions. The idea of why did Agatha promise Rio the bodies and why did Rio want Agatha dead in the first place? I think just in general, the concept of death, really, as she says herself in the show, is she's the inevitable thing. She's the thing that happens to everybody. We all die. And Agatha's a character that's defied that now for centuries on end, and had defied it at the point when that we see Death and herself meet when Nikki dies. So it's not necessarily that Rio specifically wants Agatha dead. Agatha should be dead by now because humans should be dead much earlier than 400 years. That's kind of what I think it is. I don't think Rio's specifically chasing down Agatha. I don't think she wants to take her away, but she should be dead. So Death is there to claim the people that should be dead. So she's saying to her, I'll give you another chance here. If you give me Billy, you can live for longer, but if you're not, it's your time to go now, basically, So I don't think that's about the lover scorn part of it. In fact, I feel like Agatha is the lover scorned. That's why she hates Rio as much as she does. That's why she hates Death as much as she does. She feels like she's the lover scorned more than anything else. But thanks so much for your thoughts, Courtney.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney.
Heather Wallace sent in her thoughts in the episode and said, I honestly don't know how to feel. I went from being moved that Agatha sacrificed herself for Billy to despising her for murdering witches for her own gain. I had a similar reaction to Wanda in Multiverse of Madness. Grief is not an excuse to become a monster. Mostly I just feel angry that Sharon, Alice and my queen Lilia died for absolutely no reason. I mean, Lilia even warned Agatha about hitting the deck, and that sneaky witch didn't deserve it. The road was a con, the song was a con, and I kind of feel con too. If the episode order was reversed and we saw Agatha's sacrifice after we knew her backstory, that may have made me more sympathetic to her, but I still feel that sacrifice was all part of a con for immortality. The only way to look at it is that Agatha was the anti-hero all along.
Thanks so much, Heather. Yeah, I mean, that could absolutely be the way of it, really. Yeah. And I do feel not so much reversed, but I think that's my kind of feeling around it having Agatha's sacrifice peppered through this series. It's kind of like Nicholas Scratch, just tell Nicholas Scratch's story, because actually I loved it. I don't think it needs to be held back as another red herring, because we've got the Black Heart red herring, with the Mephisto red herring. Nicholas Scratch, is he, isn't he? And like in the end, it's sometimes just tell the story. And I think that just would have helped for the final episode, to be honest. I still really enjoyed it. And I kind of did like the fact that the song was a con. As I say, it felt to me more in keeping with Billy projecting his reality and making up the road, and it was made up in song in 1750. So it felt like there were parallels, and that's why I feel have them running along together. And then you get, rather keeping Agatha's story a mystery, you expose it and you have it and you embrace. You've got Lilia's mystery in there. You've got a whole rake of other mysteries. And it's like, it's too many mysteries for one series to potentially cope with. I would say it's just about coped with it, but I think it could have been handled even better.
Right. I'll respectfully agree to disagree on that, but thanks so much for your thoughts, Heather. We'll move on to Adam Burton, who just simply says, bit underwhelming, to be honest. I liked the second last episode, then the finale was just a bit flat for me. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. I think that can be the way sometimes. Donald Dennis says, I really liked it, but a lot of the final episode almost felt like it was meant to be released later as a surprise, like the Cats episode of Sandman. The creation of the song was interesting, but I'm surprised they didn't show Agatha using her stolen power to try and heal her son or bring him back. Interesting, actually, yeah. Although, I mean, we just get that moment where she says, I can do all these things. I can cast the spell. I can control feeble minds, but I can't divine when you're going to be taken from me.
She also says, I can't heal you. I can't help you,
And I can't feed you effectively through magic.
Exactly. That's a really interesting idea, though. But I do also have the side of my head where it's also the MCU. So the idea that any character can bring people back from the dead after they're gone, that does open up a can of worms that you might not want to open in the MCU, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Donald.
Adrian Johnson says, I surprisingly really liked this series overall. I enjoyed the story, the new characters, and although I wanted the ones we lost to all come back at the end, I do appreciate that they didn't. I look forward to the journey ahead. Marvel TV is back in good form.
Absolutely, Adrian. That's it. Even though I've kind of been a little bit off, I'm totally with you. I love this series.
Yes.
I still did a defend for both of them.
Absolutely.
I just and I think it's overall it's a really good season.
Yeah.
So I'm not hating.
Absolutely. It's been great. I loved it as well, Adrian. Thanks so much for your thoughts.
Great, Adrian. Thanks so much. Becky Anderson says, episode 8 was okay. The showdown was cool. I loved all the visuals this show has had all season. I'm glad Agatha didn't let death take Billy after all. The best part was the end, watching Billy realise the truth of the road. All I could think of was the usual suspects. I literally said, Billy is Kaiser Soze to my TV. Great reveal and ending with Agatha saying boo behind him was great. Episode 9 was brilliant. I loved getting the backstory of the song and the reveal the road was never real, just a con. Seeing her with Nikki was so sweet and made sense why she was so fond of Teen. My favourite moment was when she admitted the reason she wouldn't cross over is because she was afraid to face her son. Billy making the entrance to the road, a memorial for the fallen witches, was so touching. Hope they find Tommy. I'm going to miss this show so much. What a ride. Absolutely, Becky. And it might be riding into Vision Quest. Who knows? It might be sooner than we think. I mean, that is pure speculation on our part. But
filming doesn't start until 2025. They're still writing scripts at the moment. Given the reaction to Agatha all along and how much fun people have had and how much joy it's brought people, I would be shocked if they don't incorporate something of Agatha all along into Vision Quest. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Becky.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Becky. And one other thing that I do love about the series that I didn't say earlier on, what I love about it is it didn't end with the big punch-up battle. The big punch-up battle happened in episode 8, and they went for the emotional punch instead with the final episode. That's something different. We saw the whole joke in She-Hulk that they always thought an MCU movie has to end with a big punch-up battle between the two big bads against each other. They chose to go for the emotional punch, which I think makes more sense for the show that Agatha all along was delivering. Yeah.
A twist and turny road indeed.
Exactly. Finally, Dr. Bob Phillips says, Jack Shaeffer certainly knows how to write a tale of complex grief, doesn't she? Sometimes boys just die. Despite everything anyone can do, episode 7 might have been the best standalone episode, but I love the unveiling of the con turned reality in the final episode and really, really want this storyline to continue.
Excellent stuff, Dr. Bob.
Well said, Dr. Bob.
Totally want the story to continue as well, for sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody, for your feedback on this season of Agatha All Along. Again, if you want to get in contact with us before our wrap-up finale episode, you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. If you want to support us, you can also support us over on patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, or you can support us by going over to buymeacoffee.com/tvpi. And the best way, of course, to support us is sharing the podcast, because sharing the podcast is sharing the witchy love. It is. We will, of course, be back with the next Marvel TV show, which is What If, Season 3, coming out on the 22nd of December. And looking forward to covering a different type of Marvel show on the podcast here. But if you want to catch up with the other stuff we're covering, you can pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. Join us there. We're covering the last couple of episodes of the awesome Penguin, another one of the best shows of the year. One of the ones I'm really enjoying covering every week.
Definitely.
Just 2 episodes left for that one as well.
Yeah, I know. Flying through that, even though penguins can't fly.
Absolutely, and there's no Batman to fly in there
I know.
at all. Yeah. But thanks so much for joining us on the road so far, and until we see you later on down the road, see you later, witches.
Yes, thanks so much, fellow defenders, for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure discussing all things Marvel with you. Until next time, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep defending.
Bye.
Bye.
Down, down, down the road, down.